The galaxy had always been loud. Every species that reached for the stars brought their voices with them. They sang, they shouted, they broadcast their existence across the void. The Valtrine hummed in frequencies that made planets vibrate. The Korthi screamed their war cries through subspace. The Pinari whispered secrets that traveled faster than light itself. But humans were different. Humans knew how to be quiet. Day One stood on the observation deck of the merchant vessel Bright Pearl, watching the stars streak past in ribbons of light. He was a simple cargo inspector, nothing special, just a man doing his job. His black hair was starting to show gray at the temples, and his worn uniform had seen better days. Behind him, his colleague Hana was checking the manifest on her datapad, muttering numbers under her breath. "Another shipment of mining equipment," she said without looking up. "Destination, Outer Rim, Sector 7. Day One nodded but said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence was valuable. In space, where every transmission could be intercepted, where every signal could give away your position, the quiet ones survived. The Bright Pearl was not a military ship. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, no grand purpose. It was just one of thousands of human vessels that moved through the galaxy like shadows, noticed by few, remembered by fewer. That was exactly how humanity preferred it. 50 years had passed since humans discovered faster-than-light travel. 50 years since they stepped out into a galaxy already crowded with ancient civilizations. The other species had expected humanity to do what all newcomers did: announce themselves proudly, demand recognition, fight for their place among the stars. Instead, humans barely made a sound. They built small ships that blended into the cosmic background. They established colonies on worlds nobody else wanted. They traded quietly, spoke politely, and never drew attention to themselves. The galaxy's great powers barely noticed them. Humanity was filed away in the records as just another minor species, unimportant and unremarkable. That suited people like Day One just fine. The door to the observation deck slid open, and Captain Jun Ho walked in. He was an older man, his face weathered by years in space, his eyes sharp and watchful. He moved to stand beside Day One, hands clasped behind his back. "We'll reach the way station in 3 hours," Jun Ho said quietly. "The Korthi delegation will be there." Day One felt a small twist in his stomach. The Korthi were one of the galaxy's warrior races, tall and powerful, with forearms and voices that could shatter glass. They were not cruel, but they were proud, and they had little patience for species they considered weak. "Should we delay our arrival?" Day One asked. Jun Ho shook his head. "No, we have a schedule to keep. Just stay out of their way and speak only when spoken to." This was the human way. Avoid conflict. Stay invisible. Survive. The way station was called Haven's Rest, a massive structure floating in the emptiness between star systems. It served as a neutral meeting ground where different species could trade, refuel, and gather information. The station was run by the Pinari, who valued profit above all else. When the Bright Pearl docked, Day One could already hear the Korthi. Their voices echoed through the metal corridors like thunder. Hana stayed close to him as they walked through the station, keeping their eyes down, their steps quiet. The marketplace was crowded. Aliens of every description filled the space. The towering Valtrine with their crystal skin, the serpentine mesh who coiled around the support beams, the tiny Flicken who darted between legs like insects. And in the center, impossible to miss, were the Korthi warriors. There were 5 of them, each standing over 8 feet tall, their armor gleaming with rank insignia. They were arguing with a Pinari merchant, their voices growing louder with each exchange. The merchant, a small creature with too many eyes, trembled but held its ground. "Your price is an insult," one of the Korthi bellowed. "We are warriors of the Third Fleet. We demand respect." The merchant chittered nervously. "The price is fair. Market rates. No discounts for warriors." Day One and Hana tried to slip past, but one of the Korthi noticed them. The warrior turned, all 4 arms crossing over its chest, and stared down at them with eyes like burning coals. "Humans," the warrior said, the word dripping with contempt. "Scurrying through the shadows as always. Tell me, little ones, does your species even know how to stand tall?" Day One stopped. He could feel Hana tense beside him. Every instinct told him to walk away, to let the insult pass, to remain invisible. That was what humans did. That was how they survived. But something in him resisted. He looked up at the Korthi warrior meeting those burning eyes and spoke in a voice that was quiet but clear. "We know how to stand," Daiwan said. "We just choose when to do it." The marketplace went silent. Every alien within earshot turned to stare. The Korthi warrior leaned down, bringing its face close to Daiwan's, its breath hot and smelling of sulfur. "Brave words from a weak species," the warrior growled. "You have no fleet, no weapons, no warriors. You are nothing." Daiwan held the warrior's gaze. "We have enough." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then unexpectedly, the Korthi warrior laughed. It was a harsh barking sound, but there was something almost respectful in it. "Perhaps you are not as soft as you appear," the warrior said, straightening up. "But words mean little in this galaxy, human. Power is what matters. Strength. The ability to make others heed your voice." The warrior gestured broadly with all four arms. "Look around you. Every species here has had to fight for their place. The Valtrine conquered 3 systems before the others acknowledged them. The Mesh wage war in the dark spaces between stars. Even the Panari, weak as they are, have their merchant fleets and trade embargoes. What do humans have? What have you ever done to make the galaxy notice you?" Daiwan was about to respond when Captain Junho appeared at his side, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We should go," Junho said softly. "Our business here is done." The Korthi warrior watched them leave, its expression unreadable. As Daiwan and the others walked back toward the bright pearl, Hana finally spoke. "That was dangerous," she said. "We don't confront them. That's not our way." "I know," Daiwan replied, "but maybe our way is about to change." Captain Junho said nothing, but Daiwan caught the smallest hint of a smile on the old man's face. None of them knew it yet, but that brief exchange in the marketplace would echo far beyond Haven's Rest. Because while humans had spent 50 years being quiet, being invisible, being underestimated, they had also been watching, learning, preparing, and when the galaxy finally learned to heed the silence, it would already be too late. 3 weeks after the incident at Haven's Rest, Daiwan found himself sitting in a small office on Earth. The room was plain, with white walls and a single window overlooking the city below. Across from him sat a woman named Ji Young, who wore the dark uniform of the United Earth Council. Her face was calm, but her eyes were intense. "You made quite an impression on the Korthi warrior," Ji Young said, sliding a datapad across the desk. "His name is Tharkin. He's a commander in their 3rd Fleet." Daiwan picked up the datapad, confused. "I don't understand. Why does that matter? It was just a brief argument in a marketplace." Ji Young smiled slightly. "Nothing is ever just anything when it comes to galactic politics. Tharkin filed a report about you. He called you unexpectedly bold for a human. That report was read by his superiors. And by others? The galaxy is watching us more closely now," Ji Young explained. "For 50 years we've been invisible. We wanted it that way. We studied the other species, learned their strengths and weaknesses, built our infrastructure quietly. But now some people in the council believe it's time to change our approach." Daiwan set down the datapad. "You want us to be louder? Like the other species." "Not louder," Ji Young corrected. "Smarter. We've learned something that the other species never understood. Silence is not weakness. It's a weapon." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Every species in the galaxy broadcasts everything. Their fleet movements, their political arguments, their military capabilities. They can't help themselves. They need to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. But we've been listening. For 50 years, we've been listening to everything. Daiwan began to understand. "We know where they are, what they're planning." "We know more than that," Ji Young said. "We know their communication protocols, their supply routes, their weaknesses. We've mapped every major civilization in the galaxy, and they barely know we exist." She turned back to face him. "But knowledge is only useful if we're willing to use it. The Council has decided to begin Phase 2 of humanity's expansion. We're going to show the galaxy what quiet preparation can accomplish." Daiwan felt uneasy. "What does this have to do with me?" "You're being reassigned," Ji Young said. "You won't be a cargo inspector anymore. You're going to work with a special team. We call it the Silent Corps." Over the next few weeks, Daiwan learned what the Silent Corps actually did. They were not soldiers, not in the traditional sense. They were observers, coordinators, and when necessary, ghosts who moved through the galaxy unseen. His team consisted of 5 people. There was Min Seo, a communications expert who could hack into any alien network without leaving a trace. Bora was a pilot who could navigate through asteroid fields in the dark. Taeyang specialized in alien psychology and could predict how different species would react to various situations. Young Mai was an engineer who could repair or sabotage almost any technology. And then there was Daewon, who apparently had a talent for staying calm under pressure. Their first mission was simple. A Valtrine mining corporation was expanding into a system that humanity had been quietly studying for years. The system contained rare elements that Earth needed for its growing fleet. The Council wanted the Valtrine to abandon their claim without ever knowing that humans were involved. How do we do that? Daewon asked during the briefing. Ji Young, who supervised their team, smiled. By making them think it's their own idea. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Valtrine relied heavily on their communication networks, which broadcast constantly across vast distances. Min and Seo would introduce small errors into their data streams. Nothing obvious, just subtle corruptions that would make the mining operation appear less profitable than it actually was. Meanwhile, Bora would pilot a small unmarked ship through the system, deploying sensors that would detect trace amounts of a toxic element the Valtrine were particularly sensitive to. The readings would be real, just amplified slightly. Young Mi would ensure that all human technology in the area remained completely silent, producing no emissions that could be detected. Taeyang would analyze Valtrine psychology to predict when they would make the decision to leave, and Daewon would coordinate everything, making sure all the pieces moved together like a silent symphony. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of careful, invisible work. The Valtrine miners began reporting problems. Their equipment malfunctioned in ways they couldn't explain. Their surveys showed decreasing mineral yields. Their medical officers detected trace toxins in the atmosphere that shouldn't have been there. Finally, the Valtrine Corporation declared the system unprofitable and moved their operations elsewhere. They never knew that humans had been involved. They never even suspected. Excellent work, Ji Young told the team after they returned to Earth. The system is ours now. We can begin mining operations next month. Daewon should have felt proud, but instead he felt strange. We manipulated them. We lied. We protected our interests, Ji Young said firmly. Every species in the galaxy does the same. The only difference is that we do it quietly. We don't announce our intentions. We don't make threats. We simply act, and by the time anyone notices, it's already done. Taeyang spoke up. The old method was survival. This new method is expansion. Are we sure this is the right path? Ji Young looked at each of them. The galaxy is not kind to weak species. We've seen what happens to civilizations that can't defend themselves. They're conquered, absorbed, or destroyed. Humanity chose to be quiet not because we're weak, but because we're smart. Now we're using that intelligence to secure our future. She pulled up a star map on the holographic display. It showed the known galaxy with different colors marking different species' territories. Human space was barely visible, tiny dots scattered among the giants. This is us now, Ji Young said. But in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, we'll control more systems than any other species. And the beautiful part? Most of them won't even realize it's happened until it's too late. Daewon stared at the map. He thought about the Korthi warrior Tharkun, who had mocked humanity for having no power, no presence. He thought about all the species that had dismissed humans as insignificant. Maybe Ji Young was right. Maybe it was time for the galaxy to learn that the quietest voice in the room was often the most dangerous. What's our next mission? Daewon asked. Ji Young smiled. Now you're thinking like a member of the Silent Corps. We have targets across 12 systems. Human expansion is accelerating, and we need to make sure our interests are protected. Are you ready? Daewon nodded slowly. He was ready. They all were. The galaxy had never learned to heed the silence, but it would. Soon it would. 6 months passed, and Daewon's team completed 14 missions. Each one was different, but the pattern was always the same. They moved through the galaxy like ghosts, adjusting circumstances, redirecting attention, protecting human interest without anyone knowing they were there. But not every mission went smoothly. They were in the Kresh system, a collection of asteroid colonies controlled by the Mesh, the serpentine species known for their information networks. The Mesh had discovered evidence of human ships passing through their territory. Not many, just enough to make them curious. The Council needed that curiosity to disappear before it turned into investigation. The Mesh are different from the Valtrine, Tae Yang explained during the briefing. They value information above everything else. They won't abandon an investigation just because it seems unprofitable. If they think there's a secret to uncover, they'll dig until they find it. So what do? Bora asked. We give them a different secret to chase, Minseo said, pulling up data on her screen. Something more interesting than human ship movements. The plan was risky. Minseo would plant evidence suggesting that the Korthi Third Fleet was planning a secret operation in Mesh territory. The evidence would be subtle, buried deep in communication channels where the Mesh would have to work to find it. When they did, their attention would shift completely to the Korthi threat. Won't this cause problems between the Mesh and the Korthi? Daewon asked. Ji Young, who was monitoring from Earth, responded through the comm system. Possibly. But that's not our concern. Our job is to protect humanity's interests. Whatever happens between other species is their own affair. Daewon wasn't sure he agreed, but he kept his doubts to himself. The operation began smoothly. Minseo inserted the false intelligence into the Mesh networks. It was convincing. Built from real Korthi communication patterns and military codes that humanity had been collecting for years. To any investigator, it would look completely authentic. But something went wrong. A Mesh intelligence officer named Sisarathan was smarter than they expected. He found the planted evidence quickly, too quickly. And instead of following it, he began analyzing how the information had appeared in his networks. We have a problem, Minseo said, her voice tight with stress. He's tracing the data insertion. If he keeps digging, he'll find markers that point back to Earth. Can you stop him? Daewon asked. Not without revealing our presence. The moment I interfere, he'll know someone's watching him. Young Mi looked up from her engineering console. What if we don't hide? What if we give him exactly what he's looking for? Everyone turned to her. Explain, Daewon said. He's smart enough to know the data was planted, Young Mi continued. He's trying to find out who planted it. So let's tell him. But not the truth. We frame someone else. Who? Tae Young asked. Young Mi smiled. The Pinari. They have the technical capability to hack Mesh networks. They have motivation, since the Mesh controls several profitable trade routes the Pinari want. And most importantly, the Mesh already distrust them. It was brilliant and terrible at the same time. They would be starting a conflict between two species to hide humanity's involvement. Daewon felt sick. This is wrong. We're manipulating everyone, making species suspect each other, starting conflicts. We're surviving, Ji Young's voice came through the comm. That's all that matters. No, Daewon said firmly. There has to be another way. The team fell silent. Ji Young's voice became cold. Are you refusing the mission? Daewon thought about it. He thought about humanity, small and vulnerable in a galaxy of giants. He thought about all the species that would crush Earth without hesitation if it served their interests. He thought about the Korthi warrior who had called humans weak and insignificant. But he also thought about who he was, who humanity was supposed to be. I'm not refusing, Daewon said slowly. I'm suggesting a better approach, one that's more human. Explain, Ji Young said. We contact Sisarathan directly. We tell him the truth or part of it. We explain that we're trying to redirect attention from human trade routes. We offer him information he actually wants in exchange for his discretion. That's insane, Bora said. We never make direct contact. That's the entire point of being silent. Maybe, Daewon replied. But silence without purpose is just hiding. If we're going to change how humanity operates in the galaxy, we need to do it with some integrity. Otherwise, we're no better than the species we're trying to protect ourselves from. There was a long pause. Finally, Ji Young spoke. You have 12 hours to try your approach. If it fails, we do it Young Mi's way. Understood? Understood. Making contact with Sisarathan was easier than Daewon expected. The Mesh valued information, which meant they kept communication channels open. Daewon sent a simple message through an encrypted channel. We need to talk. What you're investigating puts both our species at risk. 3 hours later, he received a response. Show yourself. They met in a neutral digital space, avatars facing each other in a virtual room. Sisarathan's avatar was serpentine, coiled and watchful. Daewon's was simple, human, honest. You are human, Sisarathan said. It wasn't a question. Yes, your species has been very quiet. Very careful. Why reveal yourself now? Because you're too smart, Daewon said honestly. You were going to find us eventually. I'm hoping we can reach an understanding instead of becoming enemies. You planted false intelligence in my networks. You tried to make me suspect the Korthi. Why should I trust anything you say? Because I'm telling you the truth now, Daewon replied. Humans have been moving through this system. We have trade interests here. We didn't want to draw attention, so we tried to redirect your investigation. It was wrong. I'm sorry. Sistrathan was silent for a long moment. Your honesty is unusual. Most species would continue the deception or threaten me into silence when we're not most species. No, Sistrathan agreed. You are not. Very well, human. I propose an exchange. You provide me with information about Korthi fleet movements in this sector. Real information, not fabrications. In return, I will forget about your ships passing through our territory. How do I know you'll keep that bargain? How do I know you'll provide real information? Srathan countered. We both take a risk. That is the nature of trust, Daewon thought about it. Providing real intelligence about the Korthi felt like betrayal, but the mesh would discover those movements eventually anyway. All he was doing was accelerating the timeline. Agreed, he said. They exchanged information. Daewon provided genuine data about Korthi fleet positions. Nothing critical but valuable enough to be useful. So Srathan marked human ships as authorized travelers through mesh space. When the meeting ended, Daewon sat back in his chair, exhausted. That was unexpected, Ji Young said through the comm, but it worked. Well done. It felt better than manipulation, Daewon said. Perhaps, but remember, you built that trust on giving away information about another species. The Korthi didn't consent to that. Every choice has consequences. Daewon knew she was right. There were no clean solutions in the galaxy. Only choices between different shades of gray. But at least this time he had chosen a shade he could live with. The deal with Sisrathan changed something in the Silent Corps. Word spread through the organization about Daewon's approach. Some called it naive. Others called it innovative. But everyone agreed it had worked, and that made people think. Ji Young called a meeting at the council headquarters on Earth. Daewon and his team were summoned along with dozens of other Silent Corps operatives. The assembly hall was larger than Daewon expected, filled with people he had never met. All of them working in the shadows, all of them protecting humanity's expansion through the galaxy. An older man named Hyunwoo stood at the podium. He was the director of the Silent Corps, a position Daewon hadn't known existed until that moment. We've been operating under the same doctrine for 50 years, Hyunwoo began. Complete silence. Total invisibility. This approach has kept us safe. It has allowed us to grow without interference. But the galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. He gestured to a holographic display showing the galactic map. Human-controlled systems were marked in blue. There were more of them now, scattered across multiple sectors. We're no longer a minor species, Hyunwoo continued. We control 73 systems. We have trade agreements with 15 different civilizations. Our fleet, while small, is technologically advanced. We cannot remain invisible forever. The question is, how do we become visible? Murmurs spread through the hall. Someone asked, why become visible at all? Invisibility has worked. Because invisibility has limits, Hyunwoo replied. Eventually, someone will notice the pattern. They'll realize that human influence is everywhere, that systems keep shifting in ways that benefit Earth. When that happens, if we're still hiding, we'll be seen as deceptive, manipulative, a threat. And if we reveal ourselves? Ji Young asked from her seat. Then we control the narrative, Hyunwoo said. We show the galaxy who we are on our terms, not theirs. Daewon raised his hand. What does that look like? Hyunwoo smiled. That's what we're here to decide. Operative Day 1. Your approach with the Mesh Intelligence Officer has sparked a debate within the Council. Some see it as a template for a new kind of diplomacy. Others see it as a dangerous deviation from protocol. I'd like you to explain your thinking to everyone here. Daewon stood, suddenly aware that everyone was looking at him. He had never been comfortable with attention, but he forced himself to speak clearly. I believe that silence is powerful, he began, but silence without purpose becomes cowardice. We've been quiet because we were weak, because we needed time to grow. But we're not weak anymore. We have resources, technology, and intelligence networks that rival any species in the galaxy. He paused, organizing his thoughts. When I met with Sisrathan, I realized something. The other species aren't inherently better than us. They're just louder. They announce their intentions and dare others to challenge them. But that approach creates endless conflict. Wars, trade disputes, territorial battles. They're so busy fighting each other that they waste their potential. And humans are different? Someone asked skeptically. We can be, Daewon said. We've learned patience. We've learned to observe and understand before we act. Those are valuable skills. But we've also learned to manipulate and deceive. That's dangerous. It might work in the short term, but eventually it will corrupt us. He looked at Hyunwoo. I think humanity's path forward should be based on strategic honesty. We don't tell everyone everything, but when we do speak, we tell the truth. We make alliances based on mutual benefit, not deception. We show the galaxy that there's another way to be powerful. The hall erupted in discussion. Some people agreed enthusiastically. Others argued that Daewon's approach was too idealistic, that the galaxy would exploit human honesty as weakness. Hyunwoo raised his hand for silence. Thank you, Operative Daewon. Your perspective is noted. He looked across the assembly. The council has decided to authorize an experiment. We're going to reveal humanity's presence in the galaxy, but we'll do it carefully, strategically, and we'll need volunteers to make it happen. Over the next several weeks, a plan took shape. Humanity would host a summit, inviting representatives from every major civilization. The location would be a new space station called Gateway, built in neutral territory. At the summit, Earth would reveal the true extent of human expansion and offer partnerships to any species interested in cooperation. It was bold, it was risky, and it would change everything. Daewon's team was assigned to handle security for the summit. Their job was to ensure that nothing went wrong, that no species tried to sabotage the event or threaten human representatives. This is the opposite of staying invisible, Bora commented, as they reviewed the security plans. We're literally inviting the entire galaxy to look at us. Maybe that's the point, Minseo said. We've been hiding for so long that we forgot how to stand in the light. The day of the summit arrived. Gateway Station was impressive, a gleaming structure of metal and light floating against the backdrop of stars. Ships from across the galaxy converged on it, each carrying delegates from different civilizations. The Valtrine sent their crystal ambassadors. The Mesh sent their information brokers. The Pinari sent their merchants. And the Korthi sent their warriors, including Commander Tharkin, the same warrior who had confronted Daewon months earlier. When Tharkin saw Daewon in the station corridor, the warrior stopped. His forearms crossed in a gesture of acknowledgement. The quiet human who spoke boldly, Tharkin said, I did not expect to see you here. I didn't expect to be here, Daewon admitted. Your species has been busy, Tharkin observed. We have noticed. Human ships appear in unexpected places. Human influence touches many systems. You are no longer invisible. No, Daewon agreed. We're not. Tharkin studied him with those burning eyes. Some in my fleet believe humans are a threat, that your silence was preparation for conquest. Are they right? Daewon met the warrior's gaze. We're preparing for survival. If that threatens others, they should ask themselves why they see survival as aggression. Tharkin made a sound that might have been laughter. You are still bold. I like that. Perhaps this summit will be interesting after all. The opening ceremony took place in a vast chamber at the station's center. Representatives from 30 different species gathered, watching as a human woman named Yoon-hee took the stage. She was the Earth Council's primary spokesperson, chosen for her diplomatic skills and calm presence. Welcome, Yoon-hee said, her voice carried through translators to every listener. Thank you for coming. For 50 years, humanity has been a quiet presence in this galaxy. We have watched. We have learned. And we have grown. Today, we invite you to see what we have become. She activated the holographic display, showing the true extent of human expansion. 73 systems, hundreds of stations, thousands of ships, trade routes that connected across multiple sectors. The reaction was immediate. Some species appeared shocked. Others seemed impressed. A few looked angry. We did not hide because we were ashamed, Yoon-hee continued. We hid because we were careful. We wanted to understand this galaxy before announcing ourselves. Now we're ready to participate fully, to build partnerships, to share what we've learned. A Valtrine ambassador stood. You deceived us. You took resources from systems we believed were empty. That is theft. We took resources from systems you abandoned, Yoon-hee replied calmly. Systems you declared unprofitable. We offered fair compensation in our trade agreements. We have stolen nothing. A Mesh representative spoke next. Your intelligence networks are extensive. You know things about us that we never shared. That is violation of privacy. You broadcast your activities across open channels, Yoon-hee said. We simply listened. If you want privacy, use better encryption. We'll happily teach you how. The debate continued for hours. Some species were hostile, others were curious. But slowly, gradually, the tone began to shift. Because what humanity offered was unprecedented. Genuine cooperation without conquest. Partnership without domination. By the end of the first day, 3 species had expressed interest in formal alliances with Earth. Day 1 watched it all unfold and felt something unexpected: hope. Maybe humanity's quiet approach had prepared them for something more than just survival. Maybe they could actually make the galaxy better. The summit lasted for 7 days. Each day brought new challenges, new arguments, and new opportunities. On the 3rd day, something unexpected happened that would test everything humanity had built. A ship arrived at Gateway Station without warning. It was massive, larger than any vessel Day 1 had ever seen. The hull was black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Scans showed minimal life signs but powerful weapon systems. That's a Drexai warship, Minseo said, her voice tight with fear. They're not supposed to be here. The Drexai were legendary in the galaxy, though few had ever seen them. They were an ancient species that had once controlled hundreds of systems before retreating into isolation thousands of years ago. They had no interest in galactic politics, no trade agreements, no alliances. They simply existed in their own space, and everyone else knew to stay away. But now they were here. A message came through on all frequencies. The voice was deep and resonant, speaking in a language so old that the translators struggled to interpret it. We have heard what is said at this gathering. We have listened to the species called humans. We wish to speak with them. Yoon-hee looked at Hyunwoo, who nodded. Invite them to send a representative, she said. An hour later, a Drexai delegate arrived at the station. It moved slowly through the corridors, its form difficult to describe. It seemed to shift between solid and liquid, dark and light, as though it existed in multiple states simultaneously. The other species backed away from it, even the proud Korthi warriors. But Daewon, following his instinct, stepped forward. Welcome to Gateway Station. We're honored by your presence. The Drexai turned what might have been its head toward him. You are Daewon. We know of you. You spoke honestly to Sisrathan of the Mesh. You challenged Tharkan of the Korthi. You represent your species well. Thank you, Daewon said, surprised. How do you know these things? We listen, the Drexai replied simply. We have always listened. That is why we come now. Because we hear something in humanity that we have not heard in other species for a very long time. The Drexai was given a place at the summit. Its presence changed the entire dynamic. Species that had been dismissive of humanity suddenly paid attention. Species that had been hostile became cautious. The Drexai were too powerful, too mysterious to ignore. On the 5th day, during a session about trade agreements, the Drexai spoke publicly for the first time. We have watched this galaxy for millennia, it said, its voice filling the chamber. We have seen species rise and fall. We have witnessed wars that consumed entire sectors. We have observed patterns that repeat across time. Every representative listened in absolute silence. Most species follow the same path, the Drexai continued. They announce themselves loudly. They fight for recognition. They build empires through force. They dominate until they are dominated. This cycle has repeated countless times. The Drexai turned toward the human delegation. But you have done something different. You chose silence when others chose noise. You chose patience when others chose aggression. You chose to learn before you acted. This is wisdom, a Valtrine ambassador interrupted. They deceived us. They manipulated situations for their benefit. How is that wisdom? All species manipulate, the Drexai replied. The question is whether the manipulation serves only themselves or whether it can serve others as well. Humans have shown capacity for both. That makes them interesting. Tharkan stood, his forearms spread wide. With respect, Ancient One, humans are still weak. They have small fleets, limited military strength. In the galaxy as it exists, strength is what matters. Strength takes many forms, the Drexai said. Physical power is only one. We offer humanity a choice. The chamber went completely silent. We will share technology with you, the Drexai continued. Advanced shields, faster engines, weapons beyond what this galaxy has seen. We will help you become as powerful as any species here. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Species that had existed for thousands of years had never received such an offer from the Drexai. But, the Drexai added, there is a condition. You must promise never to use this power to dominate others. You must promise to remain what you are, a species that listens before it speaks, that thinks before it acts, that values wisdom over conquest. Yunhee stood slowly. That's an incredible offer. But why us? Why humanity? Because you remind us of what we once were, the Drexai said. Before we became powerful, we were listeners. We believed that understanding the galaxy was more important than controlling it. That belief made us strong in ways that weapons never could. But over time, others forgot this. They see our isolation as arrogance. They do not understand that we withdrew because the galaxy had nothing left to teach us. The Drexai moved closer to the human delegation, but you could change that. You could show the galaxy that there is another path, not through conquest or domination, but through understanding. If you accept our offer, you will have the power to defend yourselves against any threat, but you must also accept the responsibility that comes with that power. Daewon felt the weight of the moment. This was more than just a technology transfer. It was a test. The Drexai were offering humanity a chance to become something new in the galaxy, but only if they could prove they wouldn't become like everyone else. Yunhee looked at Hyunwoo, then at the other human representatives. They had a brief, silent conversation through gestures and expressions. Finally, Yunhee turned back to the Drexai. We accept, she said, with gratitude and humility. We promise to use what you share wisely, to remain true to the path we've chosen. The Drexai made a sound that might have been satisfaction. Then it is agreed. We will begin the transfer immediately. The rest of the summit was transformed by this announcement. Species that had dismissed humanity now sought alliances. The Korthi offered mutual defense pacts. The Mesh proposed intelligence-sharing agreements. Even the Valtrine, who had been hostile, approached with proposals for joint mining operations, but not everyone was pleased. On the 6th day, a coalition of smaller species filed a formal complaint. This is favoritism, their spokesperson declared. The Drexai choose humans over species that have existed for thousands of years. It's not fair, the Drexai responded without emotion. Fairness is not measured in years of existence. It is measured in choices. When you choose wisdom over aggression, when you choose patience over haste, when you choose understanding over conquest, come speak to us again. We will listen. The final day of the summit was reserved for signing formal agreements. Humanity established alliances with 12 different species, trade agreements with 20 more, and cultural exchange programs with dozens of others. But the most significant moment came when Commander Tharkin approached Daewon privately. I was wrong about your species, the Korthi warrior said. I called you weak, but I understand now that quiet does not mean powerless. I apologize, Daewon extended his hand. Apology accepted. I hope we can work together in the future. Tharkin grasped his hand with one of his forearms. The Korthi respect strength. We now see that your strength is simply different from ours. Perhaps we can learn from each other. As the summit ended and the various species departed, Daewon stood with his team on the observation deck of Gateway Station. Watching the ships disappear into the distance, we did it, Bora said quietly. We actually did it. This is just the beginning, Taeyang observed. Now we have to live up to the promises we made. We will, Daewon said with confidence, because that's who we are. We keep our word. Ji-young joined them, a rare smile on her face. The council is pleased. Director Hyunwoo has approved expansion of the Silent Core, but our mission is changing. We're no longer just protecting human interests. We're now working to maintain balance in the galaxy, to prevent conflicts, to promote understanding. That's a lot of responsibility, Min Seo said. Yes, Ji-young agreed, but I believe we're ready for it. 3 months later, Daewon found himself back on the Bright Pearl, the cargo ship where his journey had begun. Captain Junho was still there, older but still sharp. I heard about the summit, Junho said, about your role in it. I'm proud of you. I just did what felt right, Daewon replied. That's exactly why it worked, Junho said. He looked out at the stars. You know, when I first started flying, humanity was still finding its way in the galaxy. We were scared. We hid because we didn't know what else to do. But your generation, you've turned that fear into wisdom. That's something special. Daewon thought about everything that had happened. The quiet years of observation, the careful expansion, the moment of revelation, the alliance with the Drexai, all of it had led to this: humanity taking its place in the galaxy not through conquest but through understanding. The galaxy had learned to heed the silence. But more importantly, humanity had learned that silence without purpose was just hiding, while silence with purpose was power. And now, with the wisdom they had gained and the strength they had earned, humans would help build a galaxy where all species could thrive, where conflicts could be resolved without war, where listening was valued as much as speaking. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges ahead, species that resisted, conflicts that couldn't be avoided. But humanity had proven something important, that there was another way to be strong, another way to be powerful,